and welcome everyone to our third live session of the Food Systems e-course, the seventh edition already. It's going very fast. I give the words to my colleague Herman, who will introduce the guest speakers. I'll give the word to you.
Yes, thank you, Bram, and thank you. Really nice to be here. Really thrilled to be facilitating this session of the Module 3 of the Food System e-course. My name is Herman Snel. I also work for VER, and in my daily work, I am always astonished that we're so capable of talking about what is wrong in the current food system, what needs to transform, what we need to do, but nobody's telling me how we do this and how we actually set transformation processes in motion. Nobody talks about how to facilitate and guide it and how to create these conditions for actual systemic change. So today we've brought a group of incredible guest speakers who are actually going to share their experiences, their work on food system transformation, and thoughts about how you can actually deliberately design processes that are inclusive, that are participatory, and that really cater for systemic transformation. And as I always like to say, it's not just about changing how we play the game and changing the rules of the game, it's changing the entire game, the objectives and how we measure the success in how we play it. Right, so small introduction. I'd love to give the word to our guest speakers, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves very briefly in the order that they will be sharing their experiences. So we're going to start off with Sylvia. Sylvia, would you like to very briefly introduce yourself and what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Herman, and I'm very happy to meet everybody online. Those who are here, you made a very good choice. This is a very nice course to do, the Food Systems e-course. So my name is Sylvia Kuria. I'm an organic farmer. So I've been farming for about 17 years. And through my farming work, I've moved into entrepreneurship. So I have a brand, Sylvia's Basket. You can check us online, where we sell organic produce, and I also train farmers, very passionate about making safe organic produce accessible. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sylvia, and sharing your experience and representing Kenya's women as you are leading food system transformation. Jessica, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name is Jessica Duncan, and I'm a sociologist working at Wageningen University. I'm not sure how many of you know what sociology is. I am also not sure I know exactly what it is. But basically, how I tend to think about it is we study the common sense and understand what's not common about that. So try and make, the things that we take for granted, the status quo, those are the entry points that we study to make sense of power and different sets of relations that can support or impede transformation.
Thanks so much. And we're all eager to learn more from your experiences as we take and harness those insights, using it for our own purposes. Sigrid, over to you. Would you briefly like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. As Jessica said, I'm also working from Wageningen University as a sociologist. So thank you, Jessica, for explaining what we might do or not do in our work. I work on global food system sustainability, but I believe that the challenges we face are truly global, but that how we try to transform our food systems really deserves deep, localized, contextual understandings. So what I do, I really look from a reverse food system approach, looking from consumption. So why do we have food systems? That's because we consume, and then raising that backwards to wider food systems, and there would also embedding them in local context. So I will explain a bit more about that later. Thank you.
Wonderful. Looking forward to that. Right, so I'm not going to extend it as much longer because we're really eager to move over to their presentations, but just a sort of a backdrop. I've been looking on the Curator platform and seeing your responses, your interaction with questions and topics that we've curated for you for Module 3. And I think this session is very relevant to all the questions you're asking. So for those of you that are talking about changing mindsets, changing behavior, working on multi-stakeholder power shifts, addressing power imbalances, and linking production to consumption, I think this is the right place to be. If you see somebody that is not here, that should be here from anybody in this course, please give them a call that it's urgent they join us. And without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Sylvia. Sylvia, you have approximately 20 minutes, and I'm going to be a very mean timekeeper just because today's session is so fully packed. Over to you.
Very much. Let me share my screen. Thank you very much. So I basically just wanted to go ahead and share about how, through my experiences, as I mentioned, I train farmers, very passionate about it. And, just through the work that I do, it just became, like almost second nature that at some point we had to get into the policy space. And I want to share with you some work that I've been doing for the past about 4 or 5 years with the Heinrich Böll Foundation, whereby we've been able to work with local farmers to transform the food systems from the ground up. And I wanted to share about the power of public participation and also share about how we've been working with grassroots farmers in mainstreaming agroecology in Kenya's county governance. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. So when you think about the drivers of transformation, I like the, Bram shared with us a presentation, and I was just thinking, when you think about who really needs to transform these systems, and you actually had a very high percentage of for farmers. And when you think about it, the reality is not just about the technology or global trade, but about agency, who has the power, who's able to make these decisions. And for us in this particular case, we found that, it's very important to have the farmers to be present at the decision table. So this doesn't normally happen. I don't know how it is in other continents, but I'm sure it's very similar, that whoever is making the decision is mainly the bureaucrats, the experts, those guys who work in government, those people who know, who have, sorry to say, but higher education are the ones who might know, but the farmers may not really be able to know. But through the work I'm going to share with you, we've actually realized that, having farmers at the decision table is where we need to move on to if we hope to have any transformation. So in this particular case, I wanted just to share and say that, transformation happens when the people who grow the food influence the rules that govern it. Unfortunately, this doesn't always happen. And for us, I'm going to share the story, like the case study of the 3 counties we worked in. And we have found that every time we interact with farmers, they even don't think that they have a voice. They don't think anybody will listen to them. And yet all these policies around, the farming space are actually meant for them, but they're never involved and they don't have a voice. But I'm going to share about how we did it. So basically, when you think about the foundation, which is the Constitution of Kenya, which was passed in 2010, and also the County Government Act, public participation is actually a mandatory legal requirement for all county plans and budgets. So the opportunity we actually have in Kenya, I don't know how it is in other countries, I'd be very interested to learn, is that at every county, maybe you might call it a district or, like whatever structure you have, but for us in Kenya, it's a county. We have something called the County Integrated Development Plans. And for those of us who are in Kenya, I hope you know that these CIDPs are actually a blank plate that we have when you have a new government coming in. Hopefully next year we're going to have our general elections, that they go well. So when you have the new government that comes in late August, early September, they're actually mandated to go out, conduct a public participation with this clean slate and say for the next 5 years, what would the constituents want? So this is the opportunity we have. And luckily, it's mandatory that we have to take part in these forums. It doesn't always happen, but then now, those of us who don't know about it, especially in Kenya, now you know. So I wanted to share about the way we worked in 3 different counties. I'm going to start with Kiambu. Kiambu is my home. That's where I'm coming from. So we started working with the farmers here in about 2022, right after, 2021, when COVID was, like slowing down a little bit. And how we did it was very basic. We worked with the farmers. We took them through the whole process of public participation, how to put in your submissions through the county integrated development plans. And the farmers have been amazing all these years, So basically the farmers have actually shown ownership by attending all public participation exercises voluntarily. ensuring their voices were heard, especially during, the sessions where we're talking about the budget allocation windows. We never miss any of those. And through that, we've actually managed to mainstream agroecology in the county integrated development plan. If you come to our local ward, now we have the county, then the lower section is the ward, which is a bit smaller. You find that we actually had about 5 to 6 submissions, and all of them have been approved. And not only approved, they have actually been funded by government. And all the submissions we made were in regards to agroecology, because for us, we really, and even I believe that, for sustainable farming, we really have to focus on agroecology, because these other farming methods and systems have failed us. But to want something that is encompassing, the environment, and thinking through like the different facets, because agroecology has 13 principles. So for us, we've been able to integrate them into the CIDP. And one of the things, some things we asked for, where I'm from is a very dry area. So we actually got new boreholes. And something else that we wanted to push for is a local territorial market, which we also got. And this worked very well, because we find that many of the farmers had to go out to the nearest town, which is about 7 kilometers away. Or 10 kilometers away, which was very far for them to be able to access the markets. And for us to actually push and drive agroecology, of course, markets have to be at the core of it all. And then also, we didn't have an agricultural extension officer. The other one retired in 2020. We've been having this thing in government, whereby they're not able to replace, especially the retirees. But then through our public participation, we managed to get this. And also, as I mentioned, we're in a dry area, but we don't want to plant any trees, but we also wanted to bring in the issue of nutrition. And we actually got free distribution of fruit trees. We had avocados, oranges, and mangoes. So that is Kiambu, and that's how it went. So for Nakuru, that's the second county. We started working in 2022. So the farmers again took part in the agroecology policy. We were able to train them. But in this particular case, I don't know if like a number of you might know this methodology of being able to pass on information, which is the mother-baby like methodology, whereby you had the mother group that we had been training for about 3 years, and then last year they adopted a baby group. And this has worked very well to be able to share knowledge and to be able to transition more farmers to be active into the policy space. And from here, we actually discovered when working in Nakuru that the county actually had organic fertilizer, but unfortunately, it was being given to any Tom, Dick, and Harry, which is a bit unfortunate, because the organic farmers are the ones who would benefit the most from the organic fertilizer. So we're actually able to go to the county, speak to like the leadership in agriculture, and ensure our registered groups are able to access the organic fertilizer. And then they also got organic markets, both at the local area and also territorial levels. And then farmers, are able to have these mother groups as a model for policy implementation. So what happened is the farmers were actually given space in the local county offices to set up a seed bank. The farmers we have in Nakuru were very passionate about seed bulking and saving. So they were given a free space to actually have a seed bank, which we also use for having our meetings. We meet there for free. And this is what I want to tell you people. If you want to bring transformation, work with the farmers, work with the local county, and you'll be able to, to be able to push so much change more than you ever anticipated. We never thought we'll have a free office or a free space for us to have all activities, but we do have it now. And then also we have different schools and hospitals and institutions who are actually part of the movement. And then lastly, I wanted to share about farmers in Kajiado. This is a very interesting group of farmers that we have. So the place in Kajiado County is near the Tanzania border, a place called Oloitoktok for the Kenyans who might know it. And this particular place is because this town is actually bordering with Tanzania. We find that we have a lot of infiltration of highly hazardous pesticides, especially the ones that are already banned in Kenya and might not necessarily be banned in Tanzania. So getting safe food is almost impossible. And we started working with this group about 2 years ago. And when we did start, we actually found that the farmers had never heard about organic, had never heard about agroecology. They did not know anything, did not know how that would have worked. But it's been so successful. And, the young man who's leading this process is actually a lawyer, and he was able to take the farmers through how can they be change agents, how can they be able to transform, this scenario whereby all the food is laced with highly hazardous pesticides. You can't get anything that is safe to eat. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to break this down to Kenyans, most of the tomatoes, in fact, more than 50% of tomatoes that we're getting from this Kajiado place, it's called Kimana, which is in Oloitoktok. 50% of all tomatoes consumed in Nairobi are coming from this particular place, full of highly hazardous pesticides. But anyway, worked with a small group of farmers, and they were able to put up tomato regulations and stricter pesticide management to ensure food safety. And they put in a petition. So we taught them how to write petitions. They put in the petition. The agricultural committee from the county actually came down, visited the farmers, noted down, and did some sort of, assessment. So there was a public participation. The committee from the county, agriculture, came, and they actually did an assessment. They came to the field, and they actually now have tomato regulations that we're not going to, they won't accept tomatoes to be sprayed with highly hazardous pesticide, at least if she's very good. And then secondly, they also had an issue where, but I don't know if it happens in other countries, but you find in Kenya, sometimes we don't have proper weights and balances when weighing produce out of the farm. So you find farmers are supposed to put their tomatoes in a small crate, like is maybe 50 kilos. But then you find the middlemen, when they come, they always add a big hat on top. So whatever they buy the tomatoes for 50 kilos, they end up actually, when you measure the whole crate together with the top hat that they put on top, you find that the farmers have actually lost a bit, because that would translate to even 70 or 80 kilos, which is very unfair. So these tomato regulations, apart from the pesticide management, they also supported to make sure that they have proper weights and balances when middlemen or traders are buying tomatoes from the farmers. So basically, through this, again, the success, they actually got 10 million allocated for irrigation canals to support climate adaptation. And then they also had their boreholes rehabilitated. And something else also working within the community, school shamba. Shamba is actually means a garden, for those who don't understand Swahili. So basically, this small group of farmers were able to start working with local schools to be able to teach them how to grow their own kitchen gardens and have nutritious school meals. And then also, when we started working with this group, the farmers did not have a single kitchen garden. So they were all commercial. They only grew tomatoes for sale, and they would buy everything from the market. So we really challenged the farmers and taught them, feed yourself first, start with you, because how will you be an example? How will you transform anything if you cannot even be able to show that it actually works? And I'm happy to share that the farmers have transitioned from kitchen gardens to medium-scale organic production, which means that their products are actually now getting into the market, which is really lovely. And why should we start at the county level, and why is this strategic? And as I said, some of you may call it district, but I hope you all get the idea. So when you think about the county level, you find that the proximity, the county officials are local. They're able to see the farms every day, especially the extension workers. They work very closely with the farmers. And then also they're accessible, and they also understand the specific ecological and social context of this region. So the county level works very well. We also have other partners who are actually pushing for the national level. Especially we have some countries, I don't know, I'm sure if you have someone from Uganda here, you already have your strategy in place. Tanzania also have it. Ethiopia are going to be actually launching the national agroecology strategy very soon. Kenya, of course, we launched ours almost 2 years ago. But then we actually have other actors that are working from the national level. And that's very good. But for us, we actually thought that let's work together. So you have actors working from the national level, but what is bringing the most change, which is actually budget allocations and real transformation, is when you actually work from the ground up with the local county officials who are very close to us. When will I ever find a minister? It's impossible. But I can be able to work with the extension worker. I can work with the county. And then you talk about the budget control. The counties manage extension services and the local market infrastructure. So basically, you find that the counties are the ones that are in charge of the budgets. So it's very easy for us to, when we take part in public participation, then it's very easy for us to actually be able to control how the money is going to be spent. And by the way, in all these 3 counties, we've been very successful with that. And then also accountabilities. Of course, it's easier for a farmer to put a local ward representative to task than a national minister. And we do it. Every time we go for public participation, they always know this group that was trained by Sylvia, they'll always be there. We're always asking questions. They have to share with us, how the money has been spent. And if we actually have some submissions that we have requested for and they've not been funded, we are normally there and just making sure that the money is accounted for. So for Kenyans, one more thing. Under the county integrated development plans, the plans actually last only 5 years. So you have to take part in all these public participation exercises to make sure that they finish the money. Because if the money doesn't get finished, it's going to end up in somebody's pocket. And you don't want that to happen because that normally happens. Because if you don't take part in public participation, there'll be no accountability for where the money was, how it was spent. But for us, we're keeping everyone accountable until they keep telling us this is what has remained, and we spend it all to the very last dime. So overcoming the gaps, what we learned. So the voluntary participation is the ultimate sign of success. So if you're able to give the farmers, value, and they're able to actually see why they need to spend their time and efforts, and they see the value in it, you find they volunteer very easily. And how do they see the value? You have to take the farmers through the training, teach them about the county integrated development plans, share with them the calendar of public participation. When are we meeting? Where do we meet? And you find that when they see these changes, there's a lot of ownership from the farmers. And for us, I'm very happy because we started almost like a project, but now we've mainstreamed these processes and the farmers have taken ownership, at least in these 3 counties, and we'll be expanding to other counties. And then also for us, we realized that we also have to be able to put this information in Kiswahili, which is the local language. We're still working on that. And then also when you're working with local stakeholders, in the meetings, we normally invite the chiefs, the municipal managers, bio-input providers. We work with as many stakeholders as possible. So when you have the public participation, we make sure that we invite all these group of stakeholders to come in and support. And then timing is everything. So we normally try to start the programs very early in the year. And also, something else I should say is that we also start the engagement when we have new governments. Because when the new government comes in, there's a new budget, and we make sure that we are normally on top of everything. We know how much money has been allocated. We take part in every public participation and make sure we put our leaders to account. So for transformation to happen, you must put your leaders to account. They cannot sleep. They have to make sure they actually act, and we use the money again, as I said to the last time. So if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. So this is the challenge to all of us. To transform food systems, we must move beyond the farm gate and into the boardroom. So for us, we actually have made a very deliberate choice to make sure that the farmers are the ones who are at the center of decision making. We've done it successfully. It can be done. And by the way, this year, I'm going to spend a lot of time documenting all these processes. And hopefully, we're going to come up with a nice booklet that you can be able to share with our friends in Kenya, in Africa, and also globally, just to show how we can be able to start farmer movements, to push for change in the policy space. Then don't just design systems for farmers, empower farmers to design the systems. This has also been very successful again, because it's not been, top-down approach where we come and tell the farmers what to do, but the farmers actually feel like they have agency, they have the power, and they're the ones who are going to design their own systems. And it's been so exciting to see the farmers seeing the successes of designing these systems. And then also for us in this particular case, because I'm pushing for agroecology, my role is to use our voice in public participation to mainstream agroecology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia, for this amazing and very inspiring presentation that is testimony that real-life food system transformation is possible, can happen with the right support and the right, let's say, ownership, which you have been working on so hard. You'll see that the comments in the chat have exploded in the meanwhile, so have a look at them. Many of them are referring to your work and asking for follow-up connections. There's so much we can say about this example, but before delving even deeper, I'd like to ask Jessica to unmute herself and to sort of share her reflections from this presentation, what resonates with your work and with your, let's say, recommendations, and then move on to briefly share some of your in-depth thoughts and reflections about food system transformation. Over to you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you, Herman. And thank you, Sylvia, for such an impactful and informative presentation. It's super inspiring. One thing I really took away from it was this focus on knowledge sharing, and this idea of the mother-baby sharing support system in transforming or transitioning for transitioning farmers. We do that also here in the Netherlands, particularly within the agroecological transition. We call it farmer to farmer support, but I like this idea of mother-baby. I think you also did such a nice job in highlighting how important context is in transition and transformation processes and the importance of thinking about scale. And you gave these beautiful examples from the county level in Kenya. At the same time, I think many of us have experienced this tension of working at a more local scale, where proximity can be both a strength but also a risk or a threat, which I think creates a nice linkage to my presentation, which will focus more at the global scale. So what do we do when organizing at the county level or locally is not so fluid or so pleasant as you've described in your context? And I think we can also think about the global level as a space for building strategy, solidarity, and awareness. And the other final thing that really struck me, well, many things struck me, but the final thing I'll reflect on before I start my own presentation, this idea that transformation happens when people who grow the food influence the rules. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think we also, in the same breath, need to recognize that we talk about farmers, but farmers have very different visions, competing values, different ambitions, and different access to power and resources. And we need to take this into account, that not all farmers sit at the table with the same implements or the same menu. And you ended your talk with this wonderful phrase that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think that's true. But so often farmers and other key stakeholders and rights holders are invited to the table, but the menu and the seating arrangement has already been set. And I think we have a lot of work to do to think about how we organize collectively, and I'm sure you've done this, Sylvia, but how we make sure that we show up and we can also help design the menu. So I'm grateful for that metaphor.